You've seen the title, let's get into this. The show starts off with its OP, which I normally would criticize the show for doing because most OPs give away far too much. But Kids on the Slope is different. The OP starts slow with the lyrics and visuals reflecting a lighthearted and relaxed tone. That all shifts at about 40 seconds into the OP when the song kicks it up a notch after saying, "Hey, let's swim with our clothes on, jump in," inspiring reckless behavior. The lyrics continue to tell of seduction, getting swept up in the beat, miserable days being joyous, finally calming down to the sound of a trumpet, while likening the melody to love, ending with these two gaylords running down a slope. The visuals are striking and depict a love of music, as well as an underlying sense of melancholy. You get a real sense that while this show has its downs, its main narrative will push to express the joys in life. And that right there is what Kids on the Slope is all about. I am okay with having this OP at the beginning of the first episode because it helps to build intrigue without spoiling anything too major, as the start of the show is quite slow. We get a sickening bite of the show's darker feelings right off the bat with Kaoru's proclamation over a stark black visual. We are then introduced to his character in a shot that feels heavy, claustrophobic, and lonely. What really sells all of those feelings, aside from the obvious narration, is how the shot is set up. We have students frequently walking in front of the camera, and when Kaoru is finally fully in frame, the faces of the other students are almost entirely blocked or cut off. Then we see a girl greeting her friend, and directly after she says hello, the sound begins to become muffled and reverberate, further adding to the sense of isolation. The classroom introduction feels oppressive through its use of dramatic shadows, and by placing us behind the heads of many students that appear to swallow Kaoru, cutting to a long shot where we see the windows producing an overbearing amount of light that is devoured by the dismal classroom, with Kaoru firmly in the shadows. As he walks to his desk at the back, there are quick cuts to whispers that become muffled as the scene darkens, projecting a sickening feeling throughout the scene. That feeling is suddenly broken by a very bright light and a set of hands drumming on a rail, followed by an overhead shot of a bright school and yard. This establishes the inside of the school as the source of the darkness, and makes the viewer better empathize with Kaoru later when he wishes to reach for the roof. A quick bit of bullying to solidify the isolation, then we are back to the bright drumming, now building interest as this is no longer a throwaway shot. We can infer that the one doing the drumming is the delinquent mentioned as they are not in class, and the drumming shots are all outside. The mention of social conflict sending Kaoru into a panic attack furthers our understanding of his isolationist vibes. That is until Ritsuko shows up, which cements her as an important character, quickly followed by more drumming. But it is inside this time where the impromptu drumsticks are broken and discarded in a lackadaisical manner by Sentaro. We can then infer that these three characters will be involved with one another. What makes the inside shot of Sentaro on the stairs so great is that we see him ascending towards the light, where Kaoru previously appeared distanced from it. While showing Kaoru the school, we see Ritsuko positioned near the light outside, with Kaoru closer to the darkened school building. When he's hit in the head, we get low-angle perspective shots that further isolate him from the light. Kaoru's journey to the roof and flashbacks are muted visually, with the usual tense auditory ambiance adding in a deep, thumping beat to further the sense of urgency and tension. The roof and the bright outside is freedom from this feeling, but it is blocked by a white sheet covering what we can assume is Sentaro, who we saw ascending the stairs earlier. We are then treated to a beautifully animated slow-motion scene where the removal of the sheet from Sentaro bathes both boys in a soft, warm light, different from the harsh black and white of the shadows in earlier scenes. That harsh lighting returns when Sentaro realizes he wasn't awoken by Ritsuko and tension resumes. Sentaro accuses Kaoru of stealing the roof key rather than questioning him about it. This gives us insight into his blunt and rash nature. The real key-snatching seniors emerge from the blackness of the school and stroll casually towards the two boys, who are framed in light. What really helps to sell the scene is the subtle echo of dialogue and footfalls. That really add to the feeling of enclosure, and also a feeling of realism. The gloriously animated roof fight, seriously, look at the camera movements and the fluidity of the animation, further secures Sentaro's brash nature, and introduces us to the gloriously composed OST, that does a great job of quickly building up tension and maintaining a sense of anxiety. While comment on further examples of more subtle Foley work later, but the mix of cloth moving, fist punching, and especially the sound used when Sentaro grabs the punk's arm are all great. The encroaching storm after Sentaro keeps the roof key gives us a feeling that their relationship is going to be tumultuous in nature. It also serves to place darkness outside and inside, trapping Kaoru. Sentaro's nickname of Richie tells us that he takes issue with wealth, and his interest in Kaoru sparks another panic attack. Even with the rain outside, Kaoru forcefully asks for the roof key and sprints out the door, which displays how dire his nausea truly is. We then see a great shot of Sentaro joining Kaoru in his dash, which is interesting as we saw his look of befuddlement, which is now replaced by one of joyful curiosity, accompanied by a joyous skip. This elevated mood is quickly quelled upon viewing the weighty rain and the look of neutrality on the boys' faces. The next shot acts to further stiffen the already damp atmosphere as we see how small they are while caught up in the falling water. Sentaro's pursuit of Kaoru foreshadows their relationship dynamic as Sentaro helps to free Kaoru of his isolationist tendencies. The fact that they both return to the classroom together and the water dripping off their hair in unison further signifies the birth of their later friendship. Moving to the lovingly detailed vacant nurse's office, we get a clear separation in this establishing shot. Kaoru is then placed to the right, away from Sentaro, and rather than show us the drumming right away, we first hear it off screen. A great tactic for creating intrigue. We then learn that Kaoru is aware of jazz and that Sentaro isn't a big fan of classical music, which will become relevant later. Ritsuko fawning over Kaoru's looks could have been a simple shot-reverse shot, but by cutting to this wide shot, it helps to keep the conversation visually interesting, as well as foreshadow the group's later dynamic. Where many shows focus on close-ups and mid-shots to get the most out of their characters, Kids on the Slope continues to display great restraint, using those shots when it wants to explore important character developments, but relying on many wide shots to really make the characters feel like they are in their environments. This only works so well because of the great background art. With other shows, I'm looking at you, real life, the simplistic background art can make such wide or long shots feel hollow and void of meaning, but Kids on the Slope uses them to further establish its well-crafted world. We then learn that Kaoru really enjoyed his time in the rain, further hinting at his positive growth with and draw towards Sentaro. Another great wide shot displays the separation between the two, which is further emphasized by the glass between us and them. Once in the classroom, we learn of the sudden positive development, and how Kaoru's feelings of anxiety have suddenly disappeared. The shot that displays everyone staring at him is led by one with no one staring and Sentaro at his back, again strengthening their relationship. After the episode's midsection, we learn more of Kaoru's past and how adoration for his father led to his taking up of the piano. Notice the warmer visual tone of these flashbacks, as the previous ones were stark grays, and how we always see his father from very low-angle shots, even the car he leaves in, while most of Kaoru's shots are at a steep downward angle, with long dark shadows mimicking his frame. Such shots emphasize power dynamics, but also help to convey Kaoru's feelings of helplessness when all he wants is his father to be with him. Now this is a little thing, and we'll see it later in the episode, but when Mariko, who is living in the same house as Kaoru, is going down the stairs, you can hear that they produced Foley for the sound of her hand against the rail. It's small details like that that further draw the viewer into the world. Further uses of wide shots, and we learn that through Mako's deflection of blame and Kaoru's aunt scolding him that he is looked down upon and even unwanted where he's living, while also incorporating the fact that he was abandoned by his mother into the scolding. It's a great example of concise expository dialogue being executed through conversation. We see the school with some darker clouds in the sky, representative of Kaoru's mood, beginning a great series of shots by this wide shot that provokes visual interest with the two boys playing around, and sets the scene for Kaoru and Ritsuko talking by having her walk across the shot rather than simply cutting to them talking. Background characters are all engaged in conversations of their own or walking past the window, making the school feel alive, where many other anime schools can feel dead outside of the main characters. We also can see Kaoru remove his glasses, which we can infer is due to Ritsuko saying he looked pretty without them in the nurse's office. A great subtle sign of his interest outside of him blushing and stating as much later in the scene. The other two standout moments here are the breaking of the 180-degree rule when discussing how feared Sentaro is. It is used to create a feeling of unease as well as a feeling of separation by placing the cut outside looking in. And the second moment being a quick cut to a previously established background character, in the group of four boys talking who displays animosity towards Kaoru, which is setting up a plot thread for a later episode. A cut to an establishing shot, letting us know we're in the city now. Then a couple of quick cuts establish that the two went to the record shop and entered it, starting with a close-up adding deep string bass pizzicato to emphasize the discomfort in the air.
ここがうちで、これがうちのお父さん。 西見薫と申します。お嬢様には金がね。
Once again, the majority of time is spent using wide shots, with close and medium shots being used for more intimate character expressions. The backgrounds are still lovingly detailed, which allows the wide shots to look great, and for character animation to be a little sloppy. Also notice who's inside the shop: American military personnel, which is relevant to the setting of post-World War II Japan. This shot cuts off Karu's face and puts him out of focus, adding dramatic lighting through the use of the solitary overhead light, giving Ritsuko's father a sense of authority. The way she interacts with her father cues us into his more light-hearted nature that we saw in the OP, and we can see his respect for Sentaro and shifting of tone in this delightful shot where the glare is slowly removed from his glasses. With the opening of the door, we notice two things. First, the door is quite thick, which is important for blocking sound. Second, there's a noticeable echo from the initial footfalls that creates a sense of depth and mystery. Looking down, we are cut off from viewing the downstairs in its entirety, but we can see this is another instance of darkness moving into the light, although the staircase is moving down rather than up this time. Now, I said I'd point it out again. The fact that they produce such subtle foley for Karu's hand on the railing continues to add a sense of authenticity and weight to the world the characters occupy. Karu's race to the piano displays his love of playing. He is likely overjoyed because, as we saw previously, he is shamed for playing at home. The loud bang of the cymbal snaps Karu out of his entrance, and acts as a fitting introduction to Sentaro in this scene. We see in the quick cut to Sentaro that he isn't even looking at Karu as he's caught up in his instrument, before switching to a nice wide shot that captures the cramped space. Notice how this shot places Ritsuko between the two boys before she moves closer to Karu before voicing her support for him. The following scene of Sentaro playing the drums is slickly animated and cut together, creating a sensation of excitement and wild energy as we see Karu slowly remove his hand from his ear as he becomes entangled within the beating of the drums. We can also see Sentaro close his eyes for a time, demonstrating his confidence in playing the drums. Karu's delay in responding to Ritsuko further solidifies the fact that he was caught up in Sentaro's playing. Sentaro's declaration that only jazz is allowed lets us know the space isn't simply for Sentaro to bang on the drums, and that the piano might actually get some use outside of his pitiful playing. It is a little thing, but notice how, even though she's out of focus, we see Ritsuko react, surprised by Karu's move towards the piano. The following shot frames the three together, further signifying their future connection, and also acting as a great continuous shot, where Ritsuko enters focus after her clap and exits focus after the two start bickering again. You just don't see shots like this in anime, outside of some instances where previously unknown characters come into focus. Now, where most anime would have ended with a medium shot, we get a quick cut to an off-center wide shot, further cementing their presence in the space. The tone shifts with the introduction of a subtle piano background and an establishing shot of the record shop.
お邪魔しました。
薫さん。
Where previously the shot of the shop had been a close-up and suddenly leapt inside to demonstrate how off-kilter Karu felt, this shot helps to create a more relaxed tone while further building the world. We see a soldier, someone probably heading home from work, and a mother going home with her child after shopping, all contributing to a feeling of finality as Karu is leaving the shop. So when he is stopped by Ritsuko and ends up turning around with a shot of his feet displaying the entire act of his reversal, rather than just cutting to the wide shot, we are surprised. The shot of his feet is also symbolic of the new life course Karu has set himself upon, by choosing to immerse himself in the world of jazz. The fact that Ritsuko's father knows the only thing Sentaro can play on the piano further strengthens our understanding of their relationship. Rather than making us watch his leave, we cut to a close-up of Karu's hand on the closing door, followed by an affirmation of the characters inside that he ended up purchasing jazz when he came to buy classical, ending the scene with a cut of Sentaro, who had been established in the previous shot, looking after Karu, displaying further interest in him rather than staying in the basement. The rain is back, further symbolizing the effect Sentaro has had on Karu. We see further evidence of this as each scene displays Karu getting more and more swept up in the drum beat in his head until finally he's practically dancing down the slope. Also note that every shot gets progressively lighter in tandem with his growth. When questioned by Ritsuko, both Karu and the drum beat stop abruptly, before he picks up a more mundane walking form. Then just as Karu and Ritsuko are starting to share a warm moment, Sentaro comes in and breaks the close-up into a wide shot by whacking Karu on the head, saying a curt farewell and then sprinting down the hill. Displaying further evidence of his reckless abandonment when it comes to getting wet, Sentaro sprints straight through a large puddle where there's obviously clear space on either side, forging his own path forward. Notice how everyone else are on the side of the road. Karu displays an inquisitive look as the drum beat from earlier returns in full force. A quick crescendo as he ponders what sight Sentaro sees beyond the hill, an obvious metaphor for new life experience to come. We then cut to this shot, placing Karu and Ritsuko to the far right of the frame. We see the illuminated path before them, representative of the journey they they will take throughout the series, finally ending with Sentaro's smiling face as he presses forward into that future, cutting to black with a final cymbal crash before the ED starts.
俺の大嫌いな坂道を軽々と駆け下りていく。君にはその坂の先に何が見えているのか。それは俺が見たことのない景色なのか。
The ED is filled with evocative imagery of darkness vanishing, being replaced by light, and of two strings spiraling around one another. The lyrics tell of the growth Kaoru goes through because of Sentaro throughout the show, heavily hinting that Sentaro leaves and Kaoru is left alone. There is a goodbye, blurted far away. I'm searching for a gleam of light. If only I could have said I love you. If you recall, the OP likened the melody to love, and the beat in Kaoru's head in this episode is that of Sentaro's drums, ending with, the note that I wrote in the corner of my textbook has never been delivered to this day, displaying a solitary hand playing a lonely note on a grand piano. The predictive nature of the OP and especially the ED combined with the historical setting makes Kids on the Slope feel like you're getting a glimpse into the past, viewing a tale that has stayed dormant for so many years. Even the next episode preview is interesting, as it informs us that the title of every episode is the name of a famous jazz song, adding relevant banter between the three characters about the first episode title. Well, that's all, folks! Oh man, this took a long time to make, but I sure had a great time doing it. Leave me a comment if you actually finished this video. I'm interested if anyone will watch it in its entirety.